Hi, Savitri. Can you hear me? Hi, Joseph. Oh, you're both here. So nice. Now you have to manage. There is something I will show you. Um, Here, wait a minute. Here, you have to unmute your microphone. You see mute, unmute microphone in the corner. If you hear me, if you unmute it, it's crossed most probably. If you uncross it, I will hear you. Do you have microphone, by the way? I don't see that you have microphone. You have no microphone. This is a technical thing. You need to have like headset is the best. I will tell you why. Because when you speak, there will be echo. If you don't have headset. Oh,
yeah, we have it now.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes. Thank you, Vladimir. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Vladimir.
Nice to see you both on one computer.
We're making it easy. We're joining together.
Well, depends. Yes, it's always good to have this kind of thing. It doesn't look like very convenient, but then we don't hear echo, and you can hear very well. You don't need to, I can whisper and you will hear. You will not ask, what did you say? All the time, because when you listen through computer, it's very different.
So we have here, we have a sound system. We have speakers.
All right. And still, acoustics, that hall, that echo, there are many things. Yeah. If you hear like this, it's very clear. I'm just saying it just to save you time and energy for the future. Since I am teaching already for so many years on these devices, so I know the outcomes. We will have more people who will join us. There will be Joseph, he is here behind, but he also doesn't have the microphone for some reason. He has to activate his microphone. Joseph is from Singapore. We met in Singapore when I was there with lectures. Now he's joining our course.
Can you see us well, Vladimir?
I can see two shadows as you see yourself. Yeah, the same way. I see that it is you.
You put a light on.
It is your shadows, not anybody's else. Yeah, you're sitting against light. That's why it will be always like this. If you change the position towards the wall, I will see your faces. Yeah, not against windows, but against the wall. Oh, now better. I can see. I can see Grace. Yeah, it's better. Right. Well, today I wanted us to start. We have 30 lectures to go through. You know our plan. Our plan is to cover the major vision of the Vedas, so Upanishads, and in between what happened, the shift of paradigms to understand the Vedic vision, first of all, in the light of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, and also in general, the shift of paradigms. I have all PowerPoint's presentations prepared already for this course. It's not the first time I'm running the course, and not the second. I did it many times, so in time it worked out, all the materials. Some people don't like this introduction which I'm doing now, overviewing the literature and what is the content of the literature, Shruti and Smriti. It's a little academic, they think. I can skip this, and if you need it more to see you know, what is the period of Samhita and Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads. Maybe you already know these things and you are not interested to listen to this.
You have a side window where you have text and all. Do we have to enlarge that to be able to read it?
Yes, I can. You will have a Google Drive, which in which you will have all our materials. You can download this, you can read it, you can sort of explore it, and so on and so forth. Yes, Lydia is with us. Lydia is from Paris. I just was in Paris for 3 weeks and didn't know that she was there. Lydia is a yoga teacher. She was studying Sanskrit before with me online 2 years back, but now she again starts the course.
Do we get to see the others also?
Say it again?
Do we get to see the others, their faces also?
Yes, yeah, definitely. You can see what it is about, what Agnihotra is about, what is myth of creation. I give the explanations, how it is viewed in the Veda, and just to have an idea what is the ashramas, periods of brahmachari, grihastha, naprastha, sannyasi, for yugas, basics, yeah, to be aware of what is this literature about, and also different structures of consciousness from Mandukya and from Gapsa. Yeah? I compare them with Sri Aurobindo's human cycle, Gapsa and Mandukya Upanishad to show you the same frame, same way of thinking. It's very academic, a little dry, but I can make it very non-academic on the ground of this of these studies. But there is another way of proceeding. It is the going straight to the core, or to the quintessence of vision, which I prefer usually. The Vedic vision in the light of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, to start from there and then come to the literature if you want to. I have the whole file, which I will send you with all appendixes you can read through. It's like a 50 pages file explaining all the basics of Vedic literature academically. So you will know, you will have all the ideas. If you have some questions, we can come back to it. But today I could prefer to start with Vedic Vision. Oh, this is Vedic Paradigm and Vedic Vision.
I don't know. Vladimir,
Yeah.
Can we enlarge the small window where there's the PowerPoint?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I don't know where, how. Did you try this here? Yeah.
Can you see this?
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, fine, we got it. But then we don't have Vladimir. Yeah, we'll push it up. Yeah, I think Vladimir is going to give it to us.
Yes. Oh, yes. Not only that, all the sessions are recorded in this format as you see it now. Yeah, and it will be put into this as a video file into your Google Drive, and so you can come back to it anytime if you want to review something which was there. And I can do also another way. I don't need to put it on Google Drive that you have to download, because it's a lot of gigabytes, megabytes. So you don't want to use your internet for this. But what I can do, I can put these files on YouTube private upload. That means only you can see it. Yeah, those who are invited with specific email addresses. So if you have that email address, if it is open, you can open the file. If the email address is closed, you will not be able to open it. It will tell you that it is private. So you don't need to worry that some public will see you talking or asking questions. So many people objected to it, so I don't even ask anymore. I just put it private. Yeah? So use YouTube as a storage. Okay, so I will start with Vedic Vision. I will go straight to the very gist, what I want to say. Today is an important presentation. I'm sure you will learn something very interesting today. And then we go to the literature. We will see what is there if we need to. Okay? Next time. So Vedic vision and triple transformation. I want to connect the Vedic vision with the integral yoga, and especially triple transformation, which Sri Aurobindo explains in the Life Divine, because he based his vision, his yoga, on the Vedic vision. According to Sri Aurobindo, the Veda is the earliest gospel we have of man's immortality. The central conception of the Veda is the conquest of the truth out of the darkness of ignorance, and by the conquest of the truth, the conquest also of immortality. Notice he is using twice this word, immortality, which is never used afterwards. Immortality for the post-Vedic period is immortality of the soul. It's never immortality of the body. But in the Veda, it is immortality of the body, which is difficult to believe that somebody dares to think in those terms. Yeah? For us as followers of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, there is no wonder about it. But for other followers of other traditions, yogic traditions, it is totally unacceptable. So the central conception is the conquest of the truth out of the darkness. The truth is to be conquered out of the darkness. It is hiding in the darkness. And by the conquest of the truth, conquest also of immortality. So the truth becomes the means. And for Sri Aurobindo, the truth is the supermind. The Veda is perfect and beautiful in its coherence and its unity. It's important. It's an important statement because many Vedic scholars, especially Western scholars, believe that Veda is incoherent. That these are the barbaric, tribes were writing some poetry to the powers of nature, begging them for forgiveness, mercy, some gifts, some privileges. And many passages are incoherent because they couldn't understand what Vedic rishis were supposed to say. But for Sri Aurobindo, it's quite clear. And once we have the keys, which we will look into, we will understand the meaning of the Veda. So what is this grand vision? Few words about the Veda, that everything is built on the Veda in Indian tradition. Yeah? If you take Brahmanic period, all the Brahmanas, Kalpa Sutras, all the Shrauta and Grihya Sutras, a huge extended literature, and Aranyakas and Upanishads are only commentaries and references to the Veda. Now, on this grand literature, which is called Shruti, we will look into it again, the whole commentaries of Smriti literature is built. Mahabharata, Ramayana, all is referring to the Veda. All the Shastras, all the Sutra literature, everything refers to the Vedas. So what is this grand Veda, which became the foundation of all Indian culture and civilization? So I will look into the psychological presumptions today. So the beginning, I'm taking this text from Shatapatha Brahmana. At the beginning was the self, or at the beginning was the self, so he was alone. He looked around and didn't find anybody except himself. He said, I am, but there was no other name to say, for he was alone. Oh. It's like the sun, yeah, on the picture. So he was alone. He looked around for somebody else, but found only himself everywhere. There was nobody, only him. Here and there, him. I, myself, and me everywhere. There was nobody. He wanted to say some name, but there was no name to say, for he was alone. There was no name possible to say. It's quite interesting, yes? When you are alone, there is no name because nobody is to call you by that name. So you don't need a name. You cannot call yourself by that name because it's not required. So, and this text says more. It says very interesting thing. Then he became afraid. And Shatapatha Brahmana says, that's why the one who alone is afraid. And then he thought, whom am I afraid of if I alone am? And fear vanished. And then Shatapatha Brahmana says, indeed, fear comes from another, not from oneself. Now look, it's quite interesting. Two definitions of fear. Fear comes from otherness of self. According to the Sanskrit vision, bha, root bha to appear, bhi to be afraid, to shrink, bhu to extend, and bhri to bear, to carry on. And if you compare all these roots, you will see that bhi, from which to be afraid, is actually to shrink back to yourself. If being afraid means to shrink back, to become again small, become again yourself, yeah, away from otherness. So recognizing otherness and coming back to yourself is the act of fear. We never think about it, what fear means really. Fear means to become smaller, to come back to yourself, to get away from otherness. Otherness is threatening. He was looking for another. He wanted to have another, and he didn't find him. He found only himself. But he was not happy. It continues. Sanaiva reme sadvitiyam aichat. The text says he wanted another. This is an amazing insight into his want to have communication with another. Mother says a very interesting thing about it. She says that we will come to it more in detail, that he possesses himself totally in his supreme identity. He doesn't need anything. He is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, blissful. He is all blissful. But what he wanted to have the ananda of unity, not ananda of identity. And this is what is being said. In other words, he was not happy. He was happy, but he wanted to have additional ananda of unity. And for that, he needed another. This is a fundamental issue. Yeah? This is the answer why this creation is, and why we have it. And it's, in other words, sometimes in the text it is said that he wanted to be many. It is the same. Bahusyam, may I be many. Why many? Because it creates another with whom he can have relations. This realization of ananda, of unity. These are the texts to which I will come back. They are only in Sanskrit, but I will translate to you. This is what I was referring to. It's exactly this text from Brihadaranyaka Shatapatha Brahmana, when he got the fear. The fear comes from another. Dvitiya dvai bhayam bhavati. The fear becomes from another. In the Taittiriya and many works, Taittiriya Upanishad, Aranyaka, Brahmana, we find texts which are very strange. I will translate to you this, and you will see this kind of beautiful insight, which is very difficult to Understand? So kamayata bahusyam. And he desired, may I be many. Satapotapyata, and he flamed in tapas. Satapastaptva, having flamed by tapas, idam sarvam asrijata. He cast out of himself all this, yadidam kimcha, whatever exists. Tatsrishtva, having cast all that out of himself. It's a question, what is out of himself? Yeah, that means there was something happening, some gap. Tatsrishtva tadevano pravishat. He, having cast all that, he entered it. Tad anupravishya, and having entered that, satyatyacha bhavat, it became existent and non-existent. Niruktam cha, expressed and non-expressed. Nilayanam cha, located and non-located. Vijnanam cha, discriminated and non-discriminated. Satyam cha nritam cha, satyam abhavat. The truth became true and untrue. Tat satyam chakshate. Thus the truth is explained. Now, if you look into this, it's a paradoxical logic, some kind of paradoxical thinking, looks like, but it is not. We will see why. So, why should Brahman, asks Sri Aurobindo, who is perfect, absolute, infinite, needing nothing, desiring nothing, at all throw out force of consciousness to create in itself these worlds of forms? If then, being free to move or remain eternally still, to throw itself into forms or retain the potentiality of form in itself, it indulges its power of movement and formation, it can be only for one reason, for delight. So all this indulgence, indulging, is only for the delight, for this additional ananda, as Mother explains, for this experience of ananda, of unity. Otherwise, why? Why to go into all the trouble? The Supreme, says the Mother, decided to exteriorize himself, objectivize himself, in order to have the joy of knowing himself in detail, to be able to see himself. This objectivization is very important. He couldn't see himself. He saw himself subjectively, that he was everywhere. He didn't see himself objectively, having name. The first thing in himself which he exteriorized was the knowledge of the world and the power to create it, what we call Chit Shakti or Chit Tapas in Sanskrit literature. The knowledge, consciousness, and force began its work, and the supreme will, and in the supreme will there was a plan. And the first principle of this plan was the expression of both the essential joy and the essential freedom, which seemed to be the most interesting feature of this creation. It's also a very interesting thing to know, the essential joy and essential freedom as two major main principles of this creation. We are all fighting for two things, freedom and joy. To have a joy of experience of life and freedom. I have to be free to experience this joy. There is nothing else to fight for. We have these highest human rights or divine rights. We can, propose to UNESCO or UN to have divine rights of human beings for education and for this joy and freedom. So, yes?
What about love?
Well, of course, and that is the joy. When you're in love, you have this essential joy.
That's in the delight. That's in the delight. Yeah. There can be no delight without love.
Yes, of course, of course. Love is subjective. Joy is, so to say, more objective in a way of that love which you are, or love is active and joy is perceptive, if you will. Yeah? What is interesting, how could he who alone was become many, become another? How would you do it? We all have this subjective sense of experience. How could you become another if you alone are? Can you imagine you are everywhere and then you want to become another? You go there, you are, you go there, you are, everywhere, and then there is nowhere you are not.
Like a fractal.
Like there?
Fractal.
Yeah,
Fractal.
fractal. Yeah, you can think of holographic way of becoming, yeah? Kind of holographic way of, like in the drop the whole ocean is, and yes, fractals is exactly repetition of the same yourself. But how? How would you do that fractal even?
Yeah, that's the question. Something has to split. Something has to separate.
Something has to be, yeah? Something is to interfere. Something is to be done by him, which is essentially doing to him something he didn't have before. I'm showing this picture. It's quite interesting. You can see here already a suggestion. There is something here, you see. There's darkness suddenly. There is darkness. Darkness is the key, it seems. The first creation, the eternal night. Night, says the Veda, was born out of the shining truth of the supreme power. Not the light was born out of the darkness, but the night was born out of light. This is something which the Veda knows, which Sri Aurobindo and Mother know, and they gave this knowledge to us. You will never find anywhere this vision. Even in the Bible, the God says, let it be light, as if it was darkness before. He doesn't say, let it be night, because he was light. From the night, the waters of the inconscient came into being, and from the waters of the inconscient, the time was born, the creator of all that moves. Out of himself he cast a luminous shadow, all these worlds from the superconscient to the inconscient, gradually denying himself, withdrawing his supreme knowledge from his supreme power, becoming unaware of these worlds as himself. This was the device. He withdrew his supreme knowledge from his supreme power, and within that power, he was not aware of himself as himself. It is him, but he is not aware that it is him. There are beautiful lines in Savitri, which would explain this passage. In the enigma of the darkened vasts, in the passion and self-loss of the infinite, a contradiction founds the base of life. The eternal, the divine reality has faced itself with its own contraries. Being became the void, and conscious force nescience and walk of a blind energy, and ecstasy took the figure of world pain. Notice, the blind energy is still energy, only it is blind. It has no awareness of its supreme consciousness. It becomes the energy which is just blind. What this world is about this blind energy. So I'm coming back to the mother's story, which explains this in detail. Mother speaks the story, tells the story to the children of ashram. So at the beginning, the Supreme was one, and there were four emanations. The consciousness in light, this is the first figure, the bliss, the truth, and life. And they were given the right to create, to manifest the divine. So since they were given this right, every one of them considered themselves as the divine. They didn't know anything else. They didn't have the reflection. They didn't have a look back towards the divine. They were the divine. And gradually, because they didn't collaborate, didn't remember the divine as their representative or their background, they gradually, Mother says, fall into their opposites. First, consciousness in light fell gradually into the darkness. And at the bottom, you see the symbol of the darkness. Then the figure that pulled the delight to fall gradually into suffering. That pulled the truth falling into falsehood. And finally, the eternal life or the eternal being gradually fell into death. For the first time, he could die. He was not able to die before. Now he is able to die. The emanations made for him this capacity, give him this capacity. Look at this, consciousness in light, bliss, truth, and life. And you know what it reminds me? Consciousness in light is consciousness, force. Bliss is Ananda. Truth is supermind. And life is Sat, in divine existence. So the divine existence to fall into the opposite death, these emanation or these aspects of the divine existence, such as consciousness, bliss, and truth, have to be fallen first. If we come back to the story of Savitri, you will see these will be the boons which Savitri receives. First, she receives the sight of the Dhyumatsena and the kingdom, that is consciousness in light. Then bliss for Ashvapati, who suffered a lot. Then truth, and the 100 sons from Satyavan and Savitri. And finally, life of Satyavan. You will see this gradation of this great story of creation. So these first four emanations are the first fallen beings or asuras. Yeah? Yes, somebody wants to say it? I heard the noise. Yeah. You know the story. It's a profound story. Now, what happened next is interesting, because this is the beginning. So once this fallen emanations took place, the Divine Mother Aditi looked and saw it, and she spoke to the Supreme and said, look what happened. And he said, well, what shall we do? You have to repair this. You have to do something with this fallen emanations. So when the first involution took place, says the Veda, and the light was turned into the darkness, the creation became as if unsteady. It could not sustain itself. As the Veda would say, shithilam iva, as if shaky, adhruvam iva, as if unsteady. It's the word as if is interesting. Eva, as if unsteady, not unsteady in psychological terms, because once the supreme emanations turned into their opposites, they disappeared. They were not. Darkness is absence of light, but it is at the same time light which forgot the connection to the supreme. Yeah, the bliss, the suffering is nothing but the bliss which has no connection to the supreme, forgot about the supreme. The falsehood is truth, which has no connection to the supreme. And death is eternal life, which lost the connection with the supreme. So they became as if unsteady. So when the supreme, the supreme self had to enter and to support them from within. So when he entered, as the Veda says, himself by himself, Atmanatmanam abhisamvivesha, the creation became steady. So this was the meaning of that text which I was reading, that first he cast out of himself the worlds, and then he entered them. Now, he had to enter those fallen emanations to bring them back to their self-awareness. That's what the Supreme said to the Mother. Precipitate that with a new force which will bring them back to their self-awareness. For the sake of redemption of these fallen emanations, the second creation was made. So there was no one creation, there were two creations.
Can I ask you?
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
It's like you're talking about the Supreme Mother. So was she? Where was she in relation to the divine who was alone? Because now, where was she then in the relation to the divine?
Well, there is in this particular form. When you remember, we saw the mothers that there was a force emanated of the Supreme, that Chit Shakti, which was the beginning of, and in the Chit Shakti, in knowledge, consciousness, there was a plan, a vision. So it is that plan and vision before these four emanations came into being and started their work. So they are the emanations of this Aditi, of his own supreme nature. She represents them. These are Adityas in the Vedas. We will come to these Adityas. This is Varuna, Mitra, Aryaman, Bhaga. These are and triple supermind, Daksha, Amsha, and Surya, 7 Adityas. They are these great emanations. We will look into them when we come to the Veda. Today we are trying to figure out what it is all about. We are trying to learn. So, of course, she is represented by these emanations, but she has also independent look at them and expectation of them to work and to manifest the divine, as it is expected by the Supreme, because she is the Supreme. Yeah, you remember, without him I exist not. Without me he is unmanifest. So Aditi is that force which manifests him first in the higher nature and then in the lower Prakriti. When all was plunged in the negating void, non-being's night could never have been saved if being had not plunged into the dark. So beautiful, yeah, Sri Aurobindo. So Vedic. So if being would not plunge into the dark, that darkness would never have been saved. How could it could have been saved if the being would not be there? It would fall into oblivion. It would disappear. But since the being is there within, it does not let it disappear. It holds the non-being's night now. Now the non-being's night can work, can separate us. We are separated by time and space. It is the work of the night, of forgetfulness, yeah, within ourselves and within the world. This gap, we are one being, the divine existence, but we view it from different points of view through this gap. We have an opportunity to be many already. So you can see how darkness works. In the Veda, it is very clear, it's beautiful. The dawn and the night, they are two twin sisters. They work for one particular movement or evolution of consciousness, both of them. They are both necessary. They are both mothers, workers. There is Aditi and Diti, twin sisters, who work together to manifest the divine. Without this darkness, there would be no manyness. There would be no ananda of unity. It's not possible. He would be only light. That's why to discover him too soon without forming this individuality is dangerous, because we will just dissolve ourselves into light. There will be no achievement, no manifestation. That's what many want. They want to have mukti and to never be born again. What does it mean? It means just to disappear in light from which we came. As Sri Aurobindo says, heaven we always possessed. It is earth we never possessed. That's why we are here. Coming back, as he would say in Savitri, escape brings not the victory and the crown. For him, mukti is an escape. Okay, in the mother's story, in order to repair the fall of the first emanations, the Supreme Mother Aditi delegated out of herself the force of love, which has plunged into the darkness of the first creation. In the Vedas, it is Agni, the divine will, the first avatar, who laid down and hid himself within the darkness, the immortal among mortals. It is because of his presence that everyone is evolving, seeking after the higher knowledge of the Supreme. The story is more complicated. I'm simplifying it here because there were several stages of second creation. First, Mother found the Divine Mother, the Aditi, found the gods, and she offered them to plunge into the darkness. But they didn't want to plunge into the darkness. They were scared. They were devastated when they looked into that dense darkness in which they will lose themselves totally. So they didn't want to come down. They didn't have courage, didn't have force. Then she looked deeper into the Supreme, as she says, and she found the force of love. That force, which was the power of which was greater than the fallen emanations, consciousness of which was greater and more powerful than the fallen consciousness. Bliss was greater, and truth was greater, and life was more powerful. And that force of love plunged into the darkness. And from there, this evolution of consciousness takes place. And that force of love is our psychic being. We are the sparks of that divine fire which descended into the darkness, the immortal among mortals. We are the heroes, as Sri Aurobindo says. In the Rig Veda, about these souls, they speak in terms of heroic souls of man, because we took onto ourselves the darkness. The gods were afraid to do it, but the human beings are heroes. So our psychic being is stronger than even the powers of the gods. It also explains why in the Veda and Purana they speak always about the gods as younger brothers of Asuras. Asuras belong to the first creation. Brothers, these gods, belong to the second creation. But what do they do then, if they didn't plunge. They stay in their own typal worlds, and they are invoked and brought down by human beings, Yajamana, those who make the sacrifice here, the transformation of nature. Sacrifice is the transformation of nature, and we require their help. We call those forces from their typal worlds to help us out in this battlefield. So they join our process of sacrifice. And in that sense, they help us to enlarge our capacity, and also they grow through us to higher knowledge and consciousness. So it's this game, this mutual interaction between gods and man. Gita is describing it very beautifully, in a way that we support the gods and gods will support us. And by this mutual support, we will grow into the highest good. So this is this first avatar, which Huta made picture of from the sketch of the mother, which she saw at the bottom of the inconscient. At the bottom of the inconscient, there is a supreme being sleeping. And when mother came down there, that supreme being for the first time opened its eyes. This is because of this being that the whole world, the whole darkness can sustain. So this is the evolution. A soul of the divine is here slowly awaking out of its involution and concealment in the material inconscience. Now everything slowly becomes clear what we are. We are this inconscient being in our body, vital and mind, and there is something within us which is totally aware of the divine. So we have all the grades from the most aware being to the most unaware. All the grades are within us. We are of double nature. There are beautiful lines in Savitri. He sleeps in the atom and the burning star. He sleeps in man and God and beast and stone. Because he is there, the inconscient does its work. Because he is there, the worlds forget to die. It had to die already long ago, but it forgot to die. Is it not amazing? It is not, and it is not dying at the same time, because he is there. Because the real is there within unreal. So the terrestrial evolutionary working of nature has a double process. There is an outward visible process of physical evolution with birth as its machinery. For each evolved form of body housing its own evolved power of consciousness is maintained and kept in continuity by heredity. That's why genome is so important. We have to have children because all the changes we experienced, we somehow communicate through our genome to the next generation. And their changes will be accumulated in genome and passed to the next. And by this, we develop the body in time and space. That's why it has to be uninterrupted, the heredity. It's very important. It was very important for the kings also to keep up that line of changes. You know? If it is broken, if humanity will disappear, then you have to start from the beginning. And there is at the same time an invisible process of soul evolution with rebirth into ascending grades of form and consciousness as its machinery. There is a reincarnation. So I come, I am taking body, I live here, make changes, pass it to the future generation. I leave, I come over many generations to the next body, which I prepared before. So basically, I prepare my birth over time. It's like my body in time, which is spreading over, to which I'm coming in the future again, as the son of my grandson.
Because you're not always born in the same family line.
No.
It's not like that.
Not like that. But if we look at our humanity as a group soul, as a family, then it is our family. So it's quite interesting how it was arranged. So Darwin speaks only of the first. Yeah, he speaks about genome and the development, but he doesn't understand why it evolves. The survival of the fittest is not an explanation. It's rather a description. Yeah? Explanation is not there. Why why the fittest should survive? Yeah, why? Why it should be there? So because there is something which is evolving, which is pushing it. There is the reincarnation of the soul, and we have to come to it back with this triple transformation to understand it better.
But can I ask?
Yes.
Can I ask? Do you think that the rishis of the Veda understood it that way?
Yes.
They're speaking about immortality.
Yes, exactly.
So in a certain way, how did they understand immortality then? Do you think they understood it in that way?
Yes, I think so. Moreover, I have many texts which are speaking about this. And that's why Sri Aurobindo always translated the Veda, and till the last days of his life, you can find references to the Vedic texts. Why it was so important for him? Because it was the project of group soul, of humanity. Yes, which was understood. Why Veda was so important for all Indian civilization, from which I started, because it was the text which was giving us a plan, a vision, what to do, what to achieve, what to realize. Sri Aurobindo somewhere says that there is nothing and will be nothing which is not in the Veda. And you know, for Sri Aurobindo to say such a thing, you know how precise he was with words. He would never exaggerate. He was more scientific in his yogic approach than anyone. Maybe we will stop at this point, and because there is a new nice topic coming up with the Brahman and Atman, and I want to explain to you what is Brahman and what is Atman, what is different between the two, what is Purusha, these fundamental categories or terms within Indian philosophy. And then we will come to the triple transformation, which will explain psychologically what is happening between a psychic being and the Jivatman, unborn self over the head, and how they are understood in the post-Vedic period by many traditions. And then we will come to what Sri Aurobindo is offering as a new creation, what is to happen between the two. And once we understand these topics, the rest of the Vedic texts will be quite transparent to us. And Savitri texts also from Savitri would be easy to follow. All right?
What's difficult to understand in the Veda is like the vocabulary is so symbolic.
Yeah, we will come to it.
And the grammar, you know, is so symbolic that you can't understand anything, really.
Yeah, at the beginning, yes. Once you study the this language and you dedicate some time to it, I have a number of videos, more than 700 videos, by the way. You can find explaining, reading the hymns to the mystic fire through, and many hymns to Indra, Varuna, Mitra, to all the Adityas, to Ashvins, to Maruts. What are these? And the vision of the Veda. And with the keys of Sri Aurobindo, it becomes very clear and very tangible. It's a psychology of universals. It's a very high, profound reality. You know, for Upanishadic rishis, the Veda was supreme in knowledge. We consider Upanishads to be the top of Indian philosophy. There is no higher. But the Veda we consider to be barbaric. But how come? If for Upanishadic rishis, Veda was the supreme knowledge, how come that we don't see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we will speak also about shift of paradigms. We shifted from more integral towards more mythical and then mental structure of consciousness. We have different structures in which we perceive the reality, and that's why we are limited in our perception. All right, I will stop here for today because it's time to stop. If you have some questions or clarifications, please go ahead.
What do you expect from us?
I will send you all the materials. I want you to read the views. We will be doing presentations later to each other. It would be interesting to see how you understand it. Maybe some new forms on this ground, maybe some paintings, some dance, some other creations, which could be an amazing to see some development in that view. You know? I would love to see that development, but it's the least I expect from you to follow it through, to study it at home, and then since it is an introductory course, there will be much of reading from Sri Aurobindo's mother.
Aujourd'hui, je vais vous montrer comment j'ai créé mon site pour présenter mon portfolio.
Yeah, and well, we will see. I will send you the materials. You go through and you have questions, you have developments, objections. I would encourage everything. You can interrupt me anytime. Say what you doubt, the word you don't understand, the thing is not clear. I would encourage it. I feel very comfortable with this. And I like it more than just one-way talking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you
very
very
nice. Okay, so we will meet next time, next week. Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Bye, Vladimir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste. Bye.